Well, I am often amused, but I am never amazed at how easily offended the left is about, well, pretty much everything. I mean, they're quite good at taking every issue and turning it into a reason for yelling a primal scream of racism. Recently, the state of Georgia passed some election reforms. I mean, they needed to in light of the disaster of the train wreck of the 2020 election process there. Governor Brian Kemp, who, by the way, is on our show tonight, and the legislature in Georgia, they worked really hard to make it easier to vote, but harder to cheat. And throughout the process of the bill, the governor and the legislators were in touch with citizens across the state, as well as with Georgia-based corporations like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines. And you know, everybody seemed to agree that it would be good to expand voting opportunities. But they would have to require some form of ID to ensure that votes were cast by legally qualified Georgia voters. But after the bill passed and President Biden called it a resurrection of Jim Crow laws, something that the Washington Post said wasn't true, not even close, and that's amazing that they even admitted that, those very same corporate executives went all squishy. The CEO of Delta Airlines, which is the airline I fly on almost every week, said the bill didn't reflect Delta's values, but he never identified which values were not being reflected. The CEO of Coca-Cola also complained, but likewise couldn't name one specific problem with the law. In fact, a lot of people don't know this. Georgia expanded the number of days that one can vote early, and they made provisions to accommodate even Sunday voting. It did prohibit candidates or political parties from passing out food or beverages to people who were standing in voting lines. But it completely allowed for people to be given water or other items by the election officials. Now, you know what? It makes sense not to let political candidates give out beverages and food, which sure would seem to kind of violate the law of giving something of value for a vote. Heck, I might have got elected to more stuff if I'd handed out all sorts of things at the voting line. Major League Baseball was supposed to play the 2021 All-Star Game in Atlanta, but the baseball commissioner was so upset at Georgia that he arbitrarily moved the game from Atlanta to Denver. The irony, as pointed out by many, was that in fighting a phony charge of racism, he actually moved the game from one of the blackest cities in America to one of the whitest. Figure. But the commissioner seems not to be too offended by Georgia, since he's still keeping his own personal membership at the Augusta National Golf Club, which of course is in Georgia. The outrage for companies like Woca-Cola, which is what I call them now. Catch that, Woca-Cola. Delta, Nike, and Major League Baseball is that they do a growing share of their business with communist China, which means they'd rather link up with and be partners with the Chinese communists than with the hardworking people of Georgia. The Chinese are slaughtering Uyghur Muslims, using children for slave labor, cheating on trade and intellectual property, and imprisoning people for even trying to speak out, much less vote on issues. I tweeted out last week, and this is what I said. I've decided to identify as Chinese. Coke will like me, Delta will agree with my values, and I'll probably get free shoes from Nike and tickets to Major League Baseball games. Ain't America great? Well, the next thing you know, I'm trending on Twitter, which is never a good thing. And I'm being called a racist because some knuckleheads in the media allege that I'm using hate speech on Asians. Huh? Are you kidding? It had nothing to do with ethnicity. And anyone with an IQ above stinkweed surely knows that. It was about hypocrisy and the duplicity of high-horsed globalist companies who look the other way while they make billion-dollar deals with China, but somehow pretend that Georgia is returning to racism and Jim Crow. It's so outrageous that even the Washington Post called Joe Biden out for lying. People were calling for me to be canceled and censored and demanding that I apologize. For what? Saying that it's hypocrisy for big companies to lie about the state of Georgia and try to bully the governor there, but then ignore the real abuses being conducted by the Communist Chinese Party? I will not back down. And I am so glad the governor of Georgia won't either. I got to be honest with you. We got to stop allowing the loons of the left to destroy the country with lies while Christian people are disparaged and called racist. We've got to stand for and speak out for the truth. By the way, I'm not calling for a boycott of Coca-Cola or Delta or even the cowardly commissioner of Major League Baseball. I just call for people to stand up, speak up, and stop surrendering to the insanity of calling everything racist so one doesn't have to actually discuss an issue or defend an irrational position. As my pastor used to say when I was just a kid, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And friends, it's time to stand. Wait, don't click that button. Well, unless it was the subscribe button, and then carry on. And while you're down there, hit that little notification bell too. Oh, and if you leave a like and a comment, I will personally give my dog Toby a treat.